Hello everyone, Chris Price here with another video on the KR. I've been working on getting ready for Oshkosh, so today I'm about halfway through the process doing some speed mods. I figured I'd talk about it and talk about what I've been seeing for improvements. So I started off with these wheel pants I acquired a long time ago from a junk KR. These were the old Rand Robinson ones. I flew the airplane with just these on over the wheels, and I got 6 miles an hour improvement, and that wasn't enough for me, so I decided to work on the intersection fairings. So what you're seeing here is me doing the left one with the mess before I start grinding. I made a little box out of cardboard, did some pour foam, and I'm about to start taking this to it before some sandpaper to be able to turn that mess into this. I do have the left one pretty much done minus paint, so I sanded what I thought was a good looking form. You can see the ad there that covers the brakes and then creates a nice intersection here. I did, and then cutting it free with a saw, and then put it back together, glassed it, and made it easily removable. Because in my hangar I share with somebody else, and I gotta jack up the airplane on a dolly to get it out, which means I have to be able to take these off to do that. After filling and sanding and priming, this is almost ready for paint. I did fly the airplane with just this on it and the other wheel pant without the intersection fairing, and that was another 4 miles an hour. I'm hoping after today I can get this sanded and glassed and see how much better it gets me. So I'll cut to after I'm done sanding and we'll go from there. All right, fast forward an hour. I've had some lunch and I've done some sanding. I hacked up what I could quickly with my drywall saw, and then took 36 grit on a couple boards and found the shape I wanted that matches that as much as I could. So I found, the high spots. There's one axle bolt here that just touches, and then the brake caliper is starting to feel right there. So air will go around there, and then I've got that fairing there. The whole idea is, if you look here, that should look like 90 degrees right there. So got it all sanded up, and now I'm going to mix up and make a mess with some micro and fiberglass, fill in these imperfections, the gaps here. I did add about 3 or 4 layers of duct tape right here, so that after I add in the joggles, it'll still clear. So there's that. Next up is fiberglass. All right, here's the finished product. I wish. Another hour's gone by, a couple layers of fiberglass have been put on. I know it looks like hell, but that's the beauty of fiberglass. I'm gonna let this cure for a day or so. We'll cut a split line, break it all apart, and bring it home and do some body work. We'll see you then. Okay, here we are a couple days later. I'm back in the garage, and we'll show you where we are now. I've cut this free from the airplane. I basically just set some tape to make some lines and then cut it apart with my oscillating tool. And then I'd rip it off the airplane, hog out all the foam and such that was used to make the form, a little bit of cutting and trimming, and then I've got it set back together with some popsicle sticks and hot glue to the best of my ability. You make sure it's flush here and the lines meet up and everything. And then on the inside, did some sanding and prepping here. So fiberglass is going to go here and across, and this duct tape will be released, so this will create the joggle. I can make sure I get that tape down more. And I've got that right here. This is just 1 inch wide fiberglass tape. I've got 3 layers for each side already cut and ready to glass. I found on the last one over there that 3 layers is just enough to be able to countersink a small rivet for the nut plates. So I'm getting ready to do this, and we'll get some fiberglass work and get it curing for the next step. We'll see you on that part. Okay, here we are the next day. I'm just finishing cleaning up here. So yesterday, let's see if I can do this. This is wet. Yesterday I did the 3 layers on the inside, and before I popped it apart, I drilled number 40 in spots that'll end up being where the screws go through. So now it's clecoed together on the inside, And you can see there's some painter's tape on there. So this is still wet. So I've got, taped it. You can see some tape sticking through here. I put tape on this side so that I could fill in the gap with micro. So it's filled in all the way around, and this is the messy part of fiberglass. I just finished filling the entire thing with, I don't know, 1/16 to an 1/8 inch of micro filler. That's nice and wet. When I'm done squeegeeing, sometimes I'll tap around to get the air bubbles out. So get rid of some of the pinholes. Anyway, that's gonna sit for a day and cure, and then we get to the nice dusty part of bodywork. So we'll see you when I'm done with all that good stuff. Okay, here we are the next day. I will spare you the dirty details, but I've already cleaned up, but yet there's still dust. So I sanded the whole thing with 36 grit and then 80 grit using, I use Durablocks. I love these things. So this small guy, this one for this area, and then just a little bit of hand sanding. Be very cautious not using blocks, but I had to like conform and get good angles on that. So I rough sanded the entire thing, including the gel coat, with 36 grit. And then I use this guy right here. This is called Guide Coat. It's like a charcoal powder stuff. You know, when I was done with the initial shape, rub the whole thing with this, and then I swapped to 80 grit, and that's what all this is. Sand until all the charcoal coloring is away, so you know you've sanded off all the 36 grit. So now it's ready for the next step, which is prepping for primer. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I've tried all the methods, I'll tell you. When I built the airplane, I used smooth prime for the airplane, which worked really well to fill all the pinholes. You roll that on, then you sand it with like 180, 220, and then you can do like primer surfacer. The other method, which I found sadly at the end of building airplanes, called the epoxy method. Once you're do 36 and 80 grit, you literally just mix up epoxy and do skim coats. Just dump the epoxy on there and then skim everything off, maybe like 4 coats, and then you can just rough it up and you're ready for primer and paint. That is by far the easiest and quickest method for body filler. I'm actually not doing it on this wheel pant because I ran out of epoxy. So the other method that I'm going to do, which I actually did on those, is it's only sanded with 80 grit, but I'm just going to spray on 2 fat coats of primer surfacer. It's going to look horrible, but it's going to fill in most of the sanding scratches, but it's also going to help me identify all the pinholes. When I spray it with the gray primer, I'm going to see all the pinholes in the fiberglass and everything. I'll do an initial sand with like 320, and then I'll go with what's called glazing putty, which I think I have right here. This is the cheap Bondo from AutoZone glazing putty. It's really lightweight Bondo basically. And then I'll fill it, which is what this is. So this was sanded with 320, and then you can see all the pink was all the pinholes from the fiberglass. And then I sanded it just to fill all the stuff. So like that set right there is ready for, I've done all the filling and filled all the pinholes. Now I can dry or wet sand 400, then 600, then paint. The downside with that is, on this one, some of the primer sanded through, so you see that dark spot is back down to the gel coat. You wouldn't want to do that. You can't just shoot paint over that. But in my airplane, I have to, the white portion of my airplane with the pearl has to be shot over a white surface anyway, and I have more epoxy primer. So that'll get shot with epoxy primer, then the base coat, then the clear coat. So it works out. So like in this one with you see like a massive gash, and you'll see a bunch of holes and things that don't look good. I'm just gonna shoot this with primer, sand it down, and then fix all the imperfections, and then I can get into paint. So that's where I am right now. I need to still split the micro here and split the tape. And then once I've split this, I can start upsizing the holes to like number 19 for the nut plates. So that's where we are right now, and I'll show you the next step after. See it. All right, fast forward a couple days. I've gone through a couple steps I didn't record, but we'll talk about it. This piece and that piece was the one you saw before. I shot it with polyurethane primer surfacer, sanded it with 180 grit and then 320, and I couldn't go any further than that because some of the fiberglass was showing through. So then I finished up the nut plates here. Got all the nut plates on, still a little rough. You can see the Sharpie marks from taking weight out. But after 320, I ended up shooting it with this epoxy primer. It's still curing now. Once I'm done with that, I'll sand it again with 320, 400, and 600, and then we can go about doing base coat, clear coat. This one is about the same. I shot with the primer. After sanding it with 320, there was still, it sanded through down to the gray primer surfacer, so I shot with another coat of primer when I was doing these. So this one's ready for just actually I take that back. I sand that up to 600 grit, 324 and 600, and then shot with primer. So this is ready for base coat, clear coat, but I'll just do a quick denib wet sand, any kind of trash that's in there. So we're getting there. These two, like I said, once that epoxy cures, we'll sand at 320, 400, 600, and then we can get base coat, clear coat on all the pieces. Hopefully the next one I can show you the finished product. All right, here we go, the finished product. Just got done, sanded these down to 600 grit, got these all prepped. We did a light skim coat of epoxy primer on this, then base coat, clear coat. See if I can get close enough without touching it. Nice white pearl paint job. I would say it went perfect, except for right as I was done, I made a whoopsie. I bumped into it right here with my coveralls. So I don't know if those were bubbles or if I ripped up some of the base coat. So we'll see. Either I might be able to buff it out or I might have to redo this one. But overall, 3 out of 4, 75% happy. There you go. This is why composite airplanes take forever. Hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully I'll enjoy the speed increase from this. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.